Hello everyone, I am Nathan P. Butler, author of A Saga on Home Video, a fan's guide to U.S. Star Wars home video releases, which you can find on Amazon in your region right now. This is my Star Wars blog, the voice of reason or lack thereof, and if you've been following this blog, you'll note a few things. One, that usually there's not several episodes back-to-back, and this time we're seeing 3 in rapid succession here. You'll also probably notice that the lighting is a little bit different than normal. Usually I'd be recording during the day, nice and bright and sunny, or at least some sunlight coming in from outside to supplement the really bad lighting in here. Got a couple of bare-naked, just basically regular light bulbs in here in a fixture with the cover taken off, so it's a little bit brighter, but the thing's just flickering. It drives me freaking nuts. So usually I don't have that on. Usually I've got my desk lamp on, and that's pretty much it until I start recording. Then I open up the window, let the light in, turn that light on for just as long as it has to be to have some light coming straight down, and that's it. And the lighting works out pretty well. But that's during the day. And here we are in the evening of December 15th, 2017, the official release day of The Last Jedi in theaters in the United States. And after being asked repeatedly about when you'd hear some thoughts about The Last Jedi and the Fox Disney deal and so forth, I decided that I probably shouldn't wait yet another day. To get to that, I should probably go ahead and record those thoughts now, so you get them at least a little bit sooner than you otherwise might. So, I'm going to be having 3 episodes here back-to-back. This episode is going to talk specifically about the Disney-Fox deal, some instant reactions to that, or early reactions to that, and the 4K information that's coming out relating to Star Wars. Then the next episode of the vlog will be a spoiler-free take, a quick initial reaction to The Last Jedi, followed by a spoiler-filled version of that type of reaction for those who want to sort of pick and choose which of the 2 they want to take a look at here. So, in this one, again, looking at 2 things, that is 4K and Disney Fox. The short one is 4K. So, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of question about when are we finally going to get to see Star Wars films released in 4K, in Ultra HD as it's sometimes called. Well, for those of us who have a 4K television with HDR, high dynamic range, this is kind of a big deal because we're starting to get into watching movies with greater picture clarity, and when you put something in that's just a Blu-ray, it upscales depending on your player, depending on your TV, but it's just not quite the same as actually having 4K content, especially if it's a newer movie, not something that's being tweaked to be able to give us a 4K version. Although, I will say, the 4K version of Blade Runner, which is an 80s flick, is fantastic. So if you've only watched Blade Runner maybe on VHS or old DVD or even the initial Blu-ray release, you owe it to yourself to check out the 4K release of that one if you can. Now see, last generation Blu-ray was sort of helped along by the fact that the PlayStation 3 gaming system was actually a Blu-ray player, no matter what iteration of the PlayStation 3 you got. So when HD DVD and Blu-ray were sort of duking it out, there was a big installed base that was growing and growing because of people picking up the PlayStation 3, so people had a Blu-ray player to go with their new fancy HD televisions. This time, though, we don't quite have the same thing. If you want to play 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays on a Sony system, you're out of luck. Even the PlayStation 4 Pro, which can do 4K gaming, cannot do 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays. If you want to go to the other side of the gaming business, and I say side, meaning Microsoft here, Nintendo has never really been big into the idea of having any of their video game systems actually able to play movie media, so we leave Nintendo out of this conversation completely. If you jump over to Microsoft, the regular Xbox One can't do Ultra HD Blu-rays, but the Xbox One S can, and the Xbox One X can. But those are higher-end or replacement models for the previous Xbox One, just like the Pro is towards the original PlayStation 4. So the installed base isn't quite in the same place at this point. It's not picking up as fast as something like Blu-ray did. But 4K in general is, thanks to things like 4K gaming, streaming, and stuff like that. Well, Disney was sort of slow in getting into the 4K game, but you may recall that relatively recently, we saw the release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is a Marvel Cinematic Universe film, for those who don't follow that, though if you follow Star Wars, a lot of folks do follow the MCU, which turned out to be the very first Disney-owned film, not Disney per se, but within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's part of the umbrella of Marvel, which is part of Disney, the first Disney release, or release from Walt Disney Home Video, of a 4K film. And it was actually a really solid release. It was released out there in steelbook form also at Best Buy, so it got a lot of hype that way. And it sort of opened the door to Disney 4K releases. There's been some question, when are we going to get a 4K release for Star Wars? And a lot of people were predicting, including myself, surely it'll be The Last Jedi. I mean, maybe we'll get one for The Force Awakens and Rogue One right around the same time, perhaps. Maybe they'll do a combo pack or something. But surely we're going to wind up seeing The Last Jedi in 4K, because that is sort of the premier way of seeing new movies, and the way that many new movies are being released alongside regular Blu-ray. And sure enough, that seems to be the case. Zavvi, which you may recall from the Star Wars Home Video Library, or perhaps a saga on home video, is that UK company that often puts out exclusive steelbook releases of, among other things, Star Wars films. Before the film had even been launched in the US, Zavvi started taking pre-orders for 2 exclusive items they were going to have up for the home video release, presumably around April or so, of The Last Jedi. One, a steelbook that includes a 3D Blu-ray, so thank the maker, we're actually going to get a 3D Blu-ray of The Last Jedi. I'll talk more about that when we get to the spoiler and non-spoiler reviews and such, or reactions for The Last Jedi, but I was thinking maybe that was going to be dead. Maybe Rogue One would be the last time we would see that, but at least in the UK, there will be a 3D Blu-ray release. No word on the US. Also alongside that, though, another steelbook release of a combo pack that includes 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray. So yes, unless Zavvi is blowing smoke out of its butt, and they better not be, because I and many others have already used their website to pre-order the 4K version, it does look like we're going to get a 4K version. Now, this is a good thing. This is a cool thing. To me, this brings these films into greater clarity, just a better presentation, and you know me, if you watch from the Star Wars Home Video Library, that I'm somebody who still watches the Blu-ray versions of the films whenever I'm going to watch episodes 1 through 6. I cringe at the changes that were made in 2011 for the most part, but it's a better sound and picture quality than you will find on any other official Star Wars Home Video release. So that's how I tend to watch them. This is just another step up from that. So my advice, if you're someone who's been sort of leaning towards getting into 4K, consider it. But remember, if you're going to get into 4K and you want to be able to get The Last Jedi in 4K on a disc, whether in the steelbook or otherwise, and bear in mind that most of those Ultra HD Blu-rays are region-free, so you don't need to worry about which region you're getting it for. If you get the UK one, you should be okay. Just remember, they won't play in a regular Blu-ray player. You're going to need something that plays an Ultra HD Blu-ray, which is either going to be a standalone player. I've seen those running anywhere from about $200 to about $400. It just depends on the model that you're looking at and what kind of features it has. Or go the cheaper route, and the one that'll let you do some gaming, and pick up an Xbox One S, which is the cheaper model, or X, which is the newer, beefed-up, more expensive model, to be able to play those and do some gaming at the same time. But I think this is a really good thing. And I think that it sort of opens the door, because of when The Force Awakens and Rogue One were made, to actually seeing releases of those fairly quickly back-to-back. We've seen franchises do that, where they put out something in 4K and then retroactively go back and put out some of their earlier versions in that same series, or earlier episodes in that same series in 4K as well. So I hold out hope for that for episodes 1 through 6, hopefully someday, but that goes back to the question of what would they need to do to be able to actually make that happen. But the door is more open to that now than it may have been before, which leads us to the second topic of this particular vlog out of these 3, which is Disney and Fox. There have been rumors for a while that Walt Disney Corporation was going to buy Fox. That basically you got this giant media empire from Rupert Murdoch, same guy who's behind, among other things, Fox News, and he was trying to get out of the movie and TV business and wanted to sell off those assets and basically have them picked up by some other company. And there was some jockeying around. Comcast, I think, was in there for a little bit, trying to place some bids and whatnot. But finally, Disney, as in the case with Lucasfilm and Marvel, swooped in, had the winning bid, so to speak, the best deal, the best offer, and purchased, or is in line to purchase, all of those movie and TV assets from 20th Century Fox. Now, I say they're in line to buy it rather than that they actually have, because in the U.S. there are regulations that govern that sort of thing, and basically something that huge that's going to consolidate sort of a media empire from multiple companies into one, that actually has to be approved by government regulators. So assuming it gets approved, which isn't a given, but will probably happen, that means that Disney just scooped up what, at least for home video fans, are the relevant aspects of Fox. Now, my initial reactions to this are that it is a good thing. It means that, among other things, now Disney, that seems actually willing to revive and to get going with franchises, has the rights to stuff like Firefly, which would be awesome to somehow bring back, even though the actors in many cases have moved on. Maybe some of them at least would want to come back for something like that. But of course, most importantly for Star Wars fans, it means that now the distribution rights issue that has plagued home video for Star Wars for a while is finally being resolved. And in fact, being resolved in more ways than most people are actually really kind of giving it credit for. Tell you what, let's talk the movies here in a moment, but let's talk a little bit bigger picture. What else does it mean to say that 20th Century Fox's television and movie assets, stuff that they can release on home video, are now in the hands of Disney? And in some cases, sort of back in the hands of Disney, although they never were there in the first place, because they are back in the hands of Lucasfilm that originally sold those rights to 20th Century Fox. Well, among other things, it means that droids and Ewoks, which were part of distribution through 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, now fall under release distribution through Disney or Walt Disney Home Video. In theory, now is when Disney could turn around through Walt Disney Home Video and release all of Ewoks and droids on home video. Granted, 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment could have too, but never did. So it's a question of, was it a matter of there's something wrong with the originals and they just can't do it and we just don't know about that? Or is it just that they were unwilling to for some reason? If it was just an unwillingness, maybe Disney will be willing, or Lucasfilm now will be willing, to partner with Walt Disney Home Video and get it out there. So there's that. There is some question as to whether or not that would include the holiday special. I don't believe that it does. I think that's still a CBS thing at this point. And then, of course, there's other odds and ends stuff like TV specials and that sort of thing. From Star Wars to Star Wars, an ILM special that was aired on Fox. Presumably that is somewhere within the archives they might be able to release for the first time, although I don't know how many people will be actually wanting to see that because it's mostly focused on the effects of, say, Episode 1, I think it was. I thankfully taped it off a TV and digitized it a while back, so at least I have a copy to watch, even though it's not that great of a special. It's decent, but not terrific. So there are little odds and ends things that might be pulled in by this, and then you've got the movies. So I keep having people, and it happens every time we do a stream, a live stream really of things like Battlefront or Battlefront 2, I get people saying, why haven't they released an unaltered trilogy yet? Or, why on earth are there different fanfares on the digital versions of 1 through 6, or at least 1 through 6 minus 4, and the physical releases of them, I want my 20th Century Fox fanfare back, and so on and so on. Why can't there be a box set of 1 through 9 when 9 comes out? And on and on and on and on. And it's all come down to distribution rights. Because, as of the way things stand right now, before this merger is officially complete, or this buyout, I guess, is officially complete, the distribution rights for A New Hope, in physical form, in digital form, in any form whatsoever, are in the hands of 20th Century Fox. Okay? That means that they're the ones that have to put out DVD, VHS back in the day, Laserdisc, Blu-ray, if there's ever 4K, all that kind of stuff. It's all locked within 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, at least under its current name. And then, for episodes 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, there's a similar agreement that was made, but for a different length of time. For A New Hope, it was forever, in perpetuity, as they call it. For 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, it was just until 2020, and it was just for physical releases. So that's why, when they were released digitally, it was released without 20th Century Fox having any hand in it, and without the 20th Century Fox fanfare through places like iTunes, Disney Movies Anywhere, and so forth. That is also why, when that happened, since A New Hope was a little bit different and it covered all distribution, it still had its fanfare and was not available through Disney Movies Anywhere. It's available now through Movies Anywhere, but that's because of the different studios coming together to make Movies Anywhere outside of just a Disney Movies Anywhere type of branding here. So now that the movie and TV assets for 20th Century Fox are being bought by Disney, that then brings them all under one roof. You don't have to worry about the 2020 deadline anymore. You don't have to worry about the distinction between digital and physical distribution anymore, nor do you have to worry about a difference between who's distributing 1 through 6 and who's distributing 7, 8, 9, Rogue One, Solo, and so forth. It's all under one roof. Now, it does raise questions like, okay, now that they can just release them all under the same banner, does the fanfare stay? Does the fanfare go away? Well, part of that comes down to how exactly is it that Fox is going to be branding their stuff. Because in theory, if they're still out there with things branded with Fox, or 20th Century Fox as the bigger name, then chances are you might see the fanfares go to those truncated ones like we saw on the digital release a few years ago, in 2015, I believe it was, rather than being the original 20th Century Fox fanfares. We'll just have to see. But the chances of something like a big box set have now increased big time, which is both great news for fans who want to have them all in a box set, and bad news for fans who cringe at the cost of such a set, because holy shit, we already spent a lot of money on Star Wars home video stuff. And I'm sure that if they did this, it would just be probably re-releasing the same discs again, just in new packaging, maybe with different labels. That tends to be what they do. But not as much as Spaceballs, so again, we must admire their partial restraint, I suppose. Now, the other question this raises, and had immediately was sweeping across the internet, was, oh my god, now we can get the unaltered films! Not really. The chances of that haven't really changed at all. At least not in any perceptible way. Because remember, a big part of the reason why we don't have the original unaltered versions of the original trilogy is because they don't exist anymore. They were physically taken apart. The masters were physically taken apart to be cleaned up and then turned into the special editions. So it wouldn't be a matter of actually just upgrading something, restoring something, restoring in the sense of just making it nicer looking. They'd have to actually rebuild that version. And that comes back to that question of, well, if you rebuild it, is that actually the original version? Or is it just a close approximation? Right? If Lucasfilm, or Disney, goes through and rebuilds the original versions of episodes 4, 5, and 6 that were taken apart to make the special editions, and gets something that is almost identical, or maybe even imperceptibly different only, otherwise completely the same as what we got back in 77, 80, and 83 in theaters, just in high definition or in Ultra HD or whatever it happens to be in, if they have to rebuild it to get that, isn't that essentially just a professional version of the same kind of thing that Harmy did for the despecialized editions? More or less. And you would not find many people who are aficionados of Star Wars film that would say that the despecialized editions are the original versions. They're a fan restoration to give us an experience that is as close as possible to the original version. But they are not in and of themselves original version because they're pulling from all kinds of different sources, sometimes rotoscoping and that sort of thing, to make something that approximates very closely what we would have seen back in 77, 80, 83. So in essence, it would be a new version that looks like perhaps the oldest version. Would it matter to people? Probably not, because it would mean going back and sort of retroactively getting rid of those later changes, like blinking Ewoks. So in that sense, a great thing for those who want to see those original versions. But again, it's not as simple as just, well, we've got them, now we can put them out. And they've just been stingy assholes. They just haven't wanted to put them out. They haven't wanted that license to print money. I would say, though, that that's only the second of the hurdles. The first hurdle was distribution. Okay, now it's with Disney and Lucasfilm. If they want to do it, theoretically, they can start that process. Whereas 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, maybe they wouldn't have done so because it would have meant working with Lucasfilm. Maybe there was some contention with Disney. Maybe. I'm not buying that entirely. The second hurdle being, okay, you have to rebuild the things. But even if they were willing and able to rebuild them, to put them out like that. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying it'd be a hell of a lot of work. But if anybody could do it for Star Wars, Lucasfilm could do it. The third hurdle, though, is that, remember, Kathleen Kennedy and others at Lucasfilm have come out and basically said they don't intend on changing the film again, which is the way they look in their minds at rebuilding. Okay, rebuilding what was there before, because again, it has to be rebuilt. Originals don't exist anymore. They look at that as violating George Lucas's wishes. Now, you might say what I would say, and I said on that Intellectual Honesty vlog a while back, who cares what Lucas thinks anymore? Lucas is not an official part of the process anymore. As soon as he sold off his rights to Star Wars and everything, he essentially became just a fan. A fan who originally created the thing, but now, from the standpoint of how much control he actually has over the saga, it is jack and shit. Okay, he doesn't have any control anymore. Except in terms of the legacy he left behind, and people wanting to honor that legacy, without necessarily having an obligation to do so. So you've got people like Kathleen Kennedy who have a personal loyalty to Lucas, and if Lucas says, I don't want those out there, all I want out there is the 2011 versions, because that is my definitive vision this year, for a couple of years, until I change my frickin' mind again. Although in this case, he can't do that anymore. Although Lucasfilm could, theoretically. For him to say that, and them to say we're not going to tinker with it anymore because it's his baby, it's out of personal loyalty, it seems. And that means that you're probably not going to see someone say screw it to that unless either Disney orders them to. I'm not sure if that would happen. Or you have to wait long enough that the leadership of Lucasfilm passes through enough hands that it's no longer under the control of someone who is personally loyal to Lucas, and instead is someone who perhaps is a Star Wars fan themselves, who is loyal to the company, its bottom line, to Disney, to the fans, and is willing to actually step away from what Lucas might have wanted himself to actually start a project like that to put the originals out there. So, in essence, of the three biggest hurdles, one of them has now been surpassed. We still have two to go. One of which is a matter of time and effort, but which won't be started, most likely, until the third, which is sort of more of a personnel issue than anything else, somehow resolves itself, which is probably also a matter of a long-term outlook. We may be talking like a 50th anniversary kind of thing, if that. That said, would I love to see it? Absolutely, I think that would be fantastic, and I think Disney and Lucasfilm are nuts not to do it, even today, even with Lucas not wanting it. But it hasn't happened yet. And while it's easier to happen now than yesterday, it's not by a whole heck of a lot. In theory, 20th Century Fox and Lucasfilm could have come up with some approach that would allow them to do it already, or to do it before Disney bought out Lucasfilm. They didn't. Now here we are, 2017, almost 2018, the players are shifting positions, the ownership is changing in some cases of distribution rights, and the ownership of Lucasfilm has changed, but still some of the barriers remain in place. For those who think this immediately heralds, yes, next year that's what we're going to get, the original unaltered versions, I'll believe it when I see it. And I don't think we're going to see it. At least not yet. So, that's thoughts on the whole Disney Fox thing, initial thoughts, initial reactions, and on the whole 4K thing. I think that both are really, really good developments. It's just a question of where they go from here, but I think that we run the risk of getting way too optimistic about what might come soon when we don't take a moment to try to look at things in sort of a bigger picture perspective. The outlook for Ultra HD Blu-ray releases of things isn't quite as rosy as the outlook for 4K in general, just as the outlook of sort of the big picture releases that we could get out of a Disney 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment or 20th Century Fox movie and TV acquisition would be relative to the not-so-rosy picture of how many more hurdles there still are left to get an unaltered trilogy set out there in high definition or better. So, with that, I'll wrap up this vlog. Next vlog, spoiler-free thoughts on The Last Jedi. Following that, then, will be spoiler-filled thoughts on The Last Jedi. Hope you stay tuned for those. They'll be released very quickly after this one. Thank you for watching. May the Force be with you.